You know who's coming on when you hear this song. It's his theme song. He holds the Morris Professorship of History and African American Studies at the University of Houston. He's got numerous books. He's got a Ph.D. in history from Columbia, a J.D. from UC Berkeley, and a B.A. from Princeton. You can find him all over the YouTubes lecturing. Dr. Gerald Horne, good morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, man, I'm always so excited to have you on. We all learn so much, and folks are always asking me, get Dr. Gerald Horne to talk about this. Get Dr. Gerald Horne to talk about that. Like I have you in my sleeve, and you can just pop out and talk about things. So we'll try to squeeze in as much as we can. I guess we'll start with Black August. We haven't talked about it that much since August started. Dr. Melina Abdullah spoke some about the commemoration, not celebration, of Black August.
Well, it speaks to a militant trend in the black world. Recall that the Haitian Revolution, one of the most significant events in African and African diasporan history, was initiated in August 1791. Recall the Watts Revolt in Los Angeles, August 11th, 1965, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, August 1965. And so there are many reasons to commemorate Black August because it reminds us of what it took to get us to this point. And I haven't even mentioned, of course, the trigger, if you like, for Black August. Speaking of the Angelino George Jackson, political prisoner, assassinated in California prisons some decades ago. In August, for example, with his younger brother, Jonathan Jackson, a Pasadena high schooler who sought to free his older brother, and in August. So Black August is a highly significant and highly important date in our history.
Yeah, and people study, they fast, they fight, meaning protests and such, at an elevated level. That's one of the ways that folks commemorate it, along with remembering political prisoners. And I found it pretty alarming that the Justice Department is saying they're prioritizing getting Assata Shakur, who's now 77 years old.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. One would think that the U.S. government has better things to do than go after an elderly black woman. But recall that there's a vendetta against the woman formerly known as Joanne Chesmark, who escaped the clutches of the law in New Jersey some decades ago and fled to Cuba, where she has received sanctuary for oh so many years. But the U.S. government has an elephant like a memory, and they plan to torment her until she's in her grave.
Yeah, well, the implications of that. I mean, this government going to Cuba and snatching her? That seems like an act of war.
Well, it certainly wouldn't be tolerated by the government in Cuba. And you know that was just announced the other day that Mr. Trump is thinking about unilaterally sending troops into Mexico because he says that Mexico has not been energetic in suppressing the drug flow from Mexico to the United States. It's going in terms of fentanyl. And President Sheinbaum, of course, was outraged by the suggestion of that. I dare say that many Mexicans were similarly outraged.
Yeah, well, who wouldn't be? I mean, can you imagine Canada saying, we're going to send some troops down there to the U.S., because you guys, your homeless problem is out of control, and we're going to fix it, or your drug dealers are out of control, so we're going to go down there. That's a violation of every international norm, isn't it? Isn't that an invasion of another country? You can't just go to another country and unleash your military.
Well, clearly not. And raising Canada, I just spent about half the year in Canada doing research. And
oh, you're back?
The outrage, yeah.
I thought you were never coming back, Dr. Horne.
Well, I couldn't work it out.
Oh, I gotcha.
Negotiate it. But the outrage in Canada about the United States is off the charts. I mean, it's quite tremendous. And I don't think that the U.S. has thought through what that means to have an angry neighbor on your border.
Well, I mean, I feel like that anger was present in Africa when I traveled to Nigeria, Ghana, and Benin this summer. People are pretty angry, so I'm assuming it's fairly global at this point.
Oh, it certainly is. And I guess that Mr. Trump feels that the United States still has the most powerful military, even though it keeps losing wars. And so, therefore, it can suppress that anger. It can intimidate angry nations. But I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, well, it's not a reliable plan, especially when it's all the countries, like you against the world. I know, that's Tupac, not hopefully the United States. So speaking of U.S. troops in weird places, D.C., the president has announced that they're taking over policing of D.C. It seems like Muriel Bowser is cooperating, although she did weekly state that she doesn't think they are supposed to be doing that. Fahima said she doesn't really have much recourse. Is that true? I mean, I feel like you can always say, we don't want you here.
Well, yeah, I listened to her press conference, and she's trying to walk a tightrope. She read from a prepared statement as opposed to speaking off the cuff. And she made it clear that she was not happy with this maneuver by Mr. Trump, but she feels, I assume, that if she were to denounce Mr. Trump, that it would lead to further punishment. After all, there is a 1973 law that Mr. Trump is relying upon to flow these troops into Washington, and it's very dangerous. I think it's really dangerous for black youth in particular, who I would say are the major target, because what triggered this effort by Mr. Trump was that a member of the Doge staff apparently was subjected to an attempted carjacking by black youth, and that triggered Mr. Trump. The problem, among others, is that the National Guard, which is slated, I think, to arrive in Washington, they're not trained in terms of police-civilian interaction. They're trained to fight war.
Yeah.
And they oftentimes shoot first and ask questions later.
Well, I mean, our mayor said, no, we don't want you here. The governor said it in no uncertain terms. And I get that we're a state, not a district. But also, they said that this is like a test case. So do you think D.C. is a test case? And do you expect to see this, as I do in other cities, specifically cities with black mayors like Chicago?
Well, Mr. Trump made that clear. He mentioned explicitly Los Angeles, Mayor Bass, Chicago, Mayor Johnson, and New York, Mayor Adams, who, of course, he already has an agreement with. So,
who he already owns.
A wholly
basically
owned subsidiary of the Trump organization.
Exactly. Well, okay, so this is what we have to look forward to. My solution, and I keep saying that fearless is the way forward, that we have to pledge on this show every day that we're not going to punk out. We're going to be courageous. Courage is contagious. People power is the only way we win, right? It's the only way we win.
Well, certainly. And I think, I was thinking, too, as I was being forced out of Canada, that we need our organizations to be in conversation with the Canadian authorities, because, going back to slavery, Canada was our backstop. That's where we would flee from slavery.
Canada and Mexico, yeah.
Absolutely. And now there's hardly any relationship, and Canada needs us. We need Canada. Mexico needs us. We need Mexico.
So you're talking about directly, like community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, directly in communication with foreign governments. I was thinking about writing to, President Sheinbaum in case I need to bounce. Like, can I get that, 1840 deal? Could I get asylum in Mexico? But can we do that? I guess we could.
Well, sure. I mean, obviously, you need to consult with attorneys, but I think what is the problem with extending an olive branch to neighbors, for example? What is the problem
on behalf of an NGO? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, look at Zionism. I mean, you have Jewish Americans who are in constant contact with Israel, for example.
Yeah.
And obviously, that does not necessarily raise legal questions. Otherwise, there'd be a crackdown.
Really? Well, yeah, we, the NAACP, would like to announce that the actions of our government are not in accordance with our feelings towards Canada. Dear Canada.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Well, it's not a bad idea, Dr. Horne. I mean, why not? You raise a good point. All we're trying to do is foster goodwill with our neighbors.
Definitely. That is our goal. And if we can also find sanctuary north of the border, that's all the better.
Yep. Well, speaking of north of the border, Trump is supposed to be meeting with Putin in Alaska, and I've been reading that Russia's now openly saying they want Alaska back. Are they going to kidnap Trump and take back Alaska, or is this actually? What is happening right now? Trump's like, oh, we're going to see what happens. We'll see what Putin's talking about. How off the norm of diplomacy is this?
Well, ordinarily, when you have these kinds of summits, there is intense preparation, and the leaders just show up basically for ceremonial reasons to sign documents. This is not that kind of summit, and it's quite intriguing. Now, I'm not sure if Russia is demanding Alaska back. After all, they sold it for a song in 1867, which was really a bad deal on the Kremlin's part. I'm sure they would like to take that deal back. But Mr. Trump, it's hard to figure out what his overall strategy is. I mean, we had thought that he was trying to move Russia as a way to isolate China. But then we had to set that aside because India supposedly was part of that overall strategy because India and China have bad relations. But he's now slapped these eye-watering tariffs on India, which has alienated India. And in fact, the Prime Minister of India, Modi, is headed to China at the end of the month, as I understand it. So Mr. Trump's strategy is somewhat incoherent, which I guess he sees as an asset.
Yeah, to be honest, I feel like he doesn't. I think we give him too much credit. People are saying, oh, he's doing this because of that. I think he's just willy-nilly just doing whatever he feels at any given moment. And this idea that he has a strategy, I think the people around him, that craven cartel that's orchestrating Project 2025, they have a strategy. I don't think Trump has strategy. I think he's just a wild card. We're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. We'll get his reflections on that. Of course, I got to hear about Gaza. And you said you have something to say about Shedeur Sanders. Can't wait to hear it all. That's next on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief, and boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did and wait. Call Optima Tax Relief. Do it now. You'll be ecstatic like me.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Some things can steal your sunshine. Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
There's one question every couple needs to answer. What if something happens to us? Kids, a house, a life you've built, but no estate plan? That's a risk you don't want to take. With Trust and Will, it's fast, secure, and easy to protect what matters most. Start your plan today at trustandwill.com. Use code RADIO to save 20%. Check it off your list. One less thing to worry about. Trust and Will is an online estate planning service. See website for details.
Trust and Will. The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Conversation continues right now. Dr. Gerald Horne is my guest, and I'm so glad you're with us today. So let's go a little light for a little second here. Shedeur Sanders had a solid preseason debut. Everyone was talking about it. I'm surprised this guy can even play. They're saying his mama didn't dress right. His dad's talking to the media. You know, he's over here. He's got sportscasters hating on him. He's trying to check this dude. The guy must be very disciplined. With all these distractions, he still had a solid preseason game.
Yeah, he certainly did. And recall what happened with the NFL draft just a few months ago. Initially, it was expected that Mr. Sanders would be taken first, but that did not happen because there was a really barrage of negative publicity about him, which really took money out of his pocket. And so when he came into the game against the Carolina Panthers just a day or two ago, not that much was expected. But what he showed was that what he did at the University of Colorado, playing under his father, Deion Sanders, that was an indication that he is a good quarterback. He has a very strong arm. He's an accurate passer. He has quick feet. And he displayed it all this past Sunday. And the question is, he's now number 4 on the depth chart. There are 3 quarterbacks ahead of him, but I don't expect that to last. Either that or he'll be traded to a team where he can play.
I mean, that seems weird, right? He's 4th. Everyone's buying his jersey. He's all in the press, which could all be hype. They said his mom was wearing something inappropriate. I don't know. His mom's real pretty, so everyone was mad, I guess, because he has a pretty mama. They're mad at his dad. None of this stuff is his fault. I mean, and so it feels like he's being punished for being popular or being a hot topic.
Well, as you know more than most, in U.S. society, there's a particular punishment exacted against black men who are perceived to be flamboyant. Think of what happened to Muhammad Ali. Deion Sanders was in that same mode. But what's striking in this case, is that punishment is now being extended to his children.
Yeah.
I mean, Shedeur Sanders is not flamboyant. He's just a grinded-out quarterback. And yet he lost money because of his father.
And he's already telling his dad, don't come see me. Don't come to training camp. Apparently that is not working for him. But I think he's still going to keep rising to the top because he seems like he's got an incredible work ethic and great resilience.
Well, not to mention the fact that he has a good arm and quick feet.
Yeah, that's always a plus. That's always a plus. But not saying that, Colin Kaepernick was the best quarterback ever, but his story made me not trust just the talent alone to get you over, is what I'm saying.
Oh, clearly. I mean, what happened to Colin Kaepernick was virtually criminal. That is to say, recall he was the San Francisco 49ers star quarterback, and he protested against police terror during games.
Right.
And therefore has been outlawed. He is not allowed to sign with other teams, even though other teams need him.
Yeah. That's why I was a little skeptical. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on with the Trump administration in South Africa, also Brazil, by the way, where they're punishing these countries for their policies, and again, it reminds me a little bit of the invading Mexico thing. Like, we're going to, I guess, rule the world now, tell other people whether they can prosecute past presidents or whether they can take measures to enhance their human rights or how they have to fight their drug cartels. Is that what we're doing right now?
Well, Mr. Trump really is furious with South Africa because South Africa's trying to pursue land reform. They haven't moved in that direction as of yet. Recall that the European minority in South Africa controls a disproportionate amount of the land. South Africa is trying to pursue various kinds of affirmative action policies. Mr. Elon Musk, the erstwhile first buddy of Mr. Trump, has objected to that. Recall the confrontation at the Oval Office of President Ramaphosa a few months ago, where Mr. Trump tried to embarrass the South African president. It was quite undignified on Mr. Trump's part.
I really felt like the Ramaphosa embarrassed Trump, though. I feel like he turned the tables on him.
Well, he did, because he kept his cool. He was diplomatic, as he should have been. But ultimately, the U.S. is upset with South Africa because it's part of the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, which is pursuing a stiff challenge to the U.S. domination of the world. South Africa took Israel, U.S. ally, into the International Court of Justice, making out a plausible case for genocide against Palestinians. And so, therefore, Mr. Trump has tried to impose these staggeringly high tariffs against South African exports. In other words, he's trying to dictate what happens internally in South Africa, which, of course, is way beyond the pale.
Yeah, I mean, and Brazil, right? He's mad at them for trying to prosecute Jair Bolsonaro, who's their Trump, for doing to Bolsonaro what we should have done to Trump. He's trying to control their policies using tariffs, which is not what he said. Originally, the tariffs were supposed to even these trade deficits. Now it's being used as a weapon to try to force other people to pursue his policy recommendations. You said beyond the pale. Have we ever seen this in history? I don't have anything to put it in context with.
Well, unprecedented is a term we oftentimes use when we talk about Mr. Trump. And I think he might have bitten off more than he can chew with Brazil. Brazil is a major country. It has a population of over 200 million. It has very strong relations with China and India and Russia. And I don't really think that they're going to yield with regard to this prosecution of Mr. Bolsonaro. And therefore, Mr. Trump ultimately is going to have to rethink his policy.
And what about South Africa? They're much more vulnerable, right? I mean, in the past, we've given South Africa considerable aid.
South Africa is very vulnerable. It only has a population of about 65 million. It has really this disparity in wealth, some of the most significant disparities on planet Earth. You have a very energized African majority population. In fact, just last month, believe it or not, there were rumors of a coup taking place in South Africa, which I was quite stunned by. Ultimately, of course, it didn't happen, and I'm not sure how accurate or how credible these rumors were, but it's an indication of the unrest in South Africa, which is being worsened by Mr. Trump's tariff policy. Yeah,
well, we're just 30 seconds away from news, traffic, and sports. Apparently their human rights department within the State Department is taking away criticisms of prisoner abuse, corruption, and LGBT rights abuse out of Israel, Russia, and El Salvador's report. At the same time, they're trying to punish South Africa and Brazil. It's actually quite surreal, Dr. Gerald Horne. I think we knew what we were getting with this president, but I feel like he's taken it even a little further than what I thought he would do. And I thought he was going to do a lot of terrible things. Dr. Gerald Horne is our guest. We'll keep the conversation going. Want to touch on Gaza after news, traffic, and sports, only right here.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. With school starting Thursday, the LA Unified School District is creating safe zones to shield students from immigration raids. Superintendent Alberto Carvalho spoke at a news conference on Monday.
Parents, if you are afraid of being on the street with your child, we more than likely can accommodate a specific bus route for your child.
Black Mayor Karen Bass says no info will be shared with federal agents. A historic D.C. church is suing a New York Proud Boys chapter claiming rights to the group's name and logo after winning a $3 million judgment. The Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church now sells Stay Proud, Stay Black merch using the same colors. And Houston Texans tight end Brevin Jordan was carted off Monday after a leg injury during practice. He missed most of last season with a torn ACL. Jordan tried to walk it off before being carted off the field. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Buy more, save more at Scandinavian Designs Furniture. For a limited time, save $200 instantly for every $800 you spend in store. Complete your look for less or splurge on something you love. Stop by your local showroom today or shop online at ScandinavianDesigns.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Angels opened their 3-game series against the Dodgers Monday night with a 7-4 win in Anaheim. The Angels are 4-0 against the Dodgers this season. Things are not going well for the Dodgers. Their 12-19 slump since July 4th is starting to catch up to them. Monday night's loss dropped the Dodgers' lead over San Diego to 1 game in the NL West Division. On July 2nd, San Diego was 8.5 games behind the Dodgers. Rams head coach Sean McVay is not sure when quarterback Matthew Stafford will be able to practice with the team. McVay also is not sure if Stafford will be ready for the Rams season opener September 7th against Houston. It appears the alarm has finally sounded at Rams headquarters about Stafford's health. The 37-year-old Stafford has been diagnosed with an aggravated disc in his lower back. Stafford was supposed to make his practice debut on Monday but did not feel right. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Okay, Dr. Gerald Horne is here. We're doing really well today, Dr. Horne. We're going through our list. We're getting to all these topics. I think it's because I just have to be quiet and take notes, mostly. Let's talk about Gaza. This is crazy, this escalation, the way this is unfolding. I mean, the number of people killed, right, during this campaign of Israel was not enough to turn the world's eyes, really, and make people start speaking up. It seems like the destruction of almost every school, the number of babies killed, the fact that there's pretty much nothing but rubble left in the whole place, the fact that Trump said he was going to turn it into Trump Gaza. It was the images of starving babies that finally seems to have started to make the world say enough. And some folks, Australia, which surprised the heck out of me, Canada, conditionally the UK, and France are now saying they'll recognize Palestine as a state. What does this mean? How do you see it?
Well, I think you summed up nicely, and I think that certainly the pictures of starving babies pricked the conscience of the world and of the international community. Even Mr. Trump made reference to it, saying you can't fake starvation, which is obviously accurate. But every day, it seems, there are 80, 90, 100 Palestinians killed in Gaza by the Israeli forces. The latest outrage is the killing of journalists from Al Jazeera, for example, targeted. The Israeli authorities claim that the lead Al Jazeera journalist in Gaza was actually a Hamas member.
With no evidence whatsoever of that.
And of course, if they had evidence, they should have had some sort of hearing, for example. They could have grabbed them and had a fake hearing, for example, before they killed them. But no, that was insufficient. But certainly the tide is turning, I think, against Israel. Even Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, a MAGA warrior, has used the G word, genocide, to describe what's happening in Gaza. Steve Bannon, the president's erstwhile advisor, has spoken in similar terms. And combined with the Epstein scandal, I think that Mr. Trump has to really think seriously about whether his policy towards Israel needs a serious rethink.
Yeah, I think the tide is turning internationally, even more than here. How significant is it that these folks are talking about recognizing Palestine?
Well, I think it's significant. I mean, obviously, it's hard to take it that seriously because there are all these qualifiers, for example. Oftentimes they're saying there can be no role for Hamas, which basically means that the Palestinians really don't have self-determination if they can't choose their own leaders. They say that the state has to be demilitarized. I'm not sure what that means since Israel is heavily militarized.
And what state is demilitarized? Where is there a demilitarized state in the world?
Well, of course. But having said that, I think it is a signal. It is a baby step forward that cannot be ignored.
Yeah. The killing of Anas al-Sharif and these other, it's a whole team of journalists that were clearly targeted, is chilling. And what people are missing, I think, is we're up to around 200 journalists. It's the most journalists ever killed in modern history in any conflict, by far.
Well, recall the 12-day war, so-called, when Israel attacked Iran, and there was a woman journalist on the air who was broadcasting live as her studio was bombed. She barely escaped death, but then became a symbol of steadfastness on the part of the Iranians. So Israel is certainly an outlaw regime, and it could not do what it's doing but for the backing of Washington. And that's on us, ultimately.
Yeah. I was really weirded out to be agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, though. That was really strange. On the good news side, I know you like to remind folks about the CARICOM summit in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia.
Certainly, and there was a prelude to this Addis Ababa summit that took place in Grenada just a few days ago, involving leaders of the African Union, 4 dozen plus independent African nations with the Caribbean community, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, etc. And high on the agenda was not only reparations, and you should know, as I'm sure you do, that there will be a small delegation of Black Americans going to Addis Ababa, but also visa-free travel between Africa and the Caribbean, not to mention economic cooperation between Africa and the Caribbean, because Nigeria in particular is a kind of powerhouse economically, particularly since it has a population of 200 million plus compared to Jamaica's, 3 million. And so Nigeria can do a lot of important things in the Caribbean, which hopefully will have knock-on effects and repercussions here on the U.S. mainland.
Yeah, I think that I've been really following also the momentum that's being created for Jamaica and some other Caribbean nations by the backing of CARICOM, but specifically Jamaica with this letter to King Charles, and they're really leaning into reparations from the British Empire.
Well, what's going to be interesting with regard to this Addis Ababa summit, which unfolds just in a few weeks in September, is to what extent will external powers be present? To what extent will China, Russia, the United States, for example, be present, and how they will react to what's coming out in terms of the communique, for example?
Well, I know you're going, right?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be in the classroom.
Oh, okay. You can't go to Addis, can't go to Toronto. Got to stay in Texas. I'm sorry, Dr. Horne. Dang. And speaking of in the classroom, the grift that's going on, the extortion of these colleges by this administration is insane. They want $1 billion from UCLA for supposedly not stopping anti-Semitism, $500 million from Harvard, and on it goes. I mean, where's this money meant to come from? Where's this money going? And how is this legal? I need you to put on your lawyer hat, because it seems to me they're extorting money from them in order to give them money, and also to control the academic environment and the curriculum.
Well, ordinarily one would have had notice and a hearing where the U.S. claims could be adjudicated. But that's not how Trump world works. And students in California should ask themselves, if their tuition goes up, which it undoubtedly will, if UCLA has to cough up $1 billion, ultimately that'll come from Sacramento. Ultimately, that'll come from the California taxpayers. And we need to ask very serious and searching questions, because one of the aims of Mr. Trump is to make sure that these universities are not pursuing affirmative action, or to put it another way, to make sure they're not admitting a complement of Black students, for example. They want Black students fundamentally purged from UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading where a lot of the universities now are afraid to even admit Black students or give them scholarships or any real opportunities, because they'll be accused of DEI. So it's not just shutting down affirmative action, it's just closing the door altogether.
Certainly that is the case, and obviously that shifts the focus to our HBCUs and their historic importance. They're going to have to step up, given the fact that our kids, our teenagers, our students are being tossed out of UCLA, being tossed out of the Ivy League. Columbia, for example, had to cough up $200 million as they bent the knee to Mr. Trump, of course, emulating these cowardly law firms and cowardly Paramount, which, of course, paid a fee to the U.S. administration.
A bribe.
In the process.
I mean, it's a bribe. And the thing is, okay, UCLA is a public institution. Maybe they don't have any choice. Harvard and Columbia are private universities, right? Well, they're businesses. Why do they have to acquiesce?
Well, Harvard so far is fighting back. Columbia decided to run up the white flag.
To fold. And is UCLA paying $1 billion to get $500 million? I don't see the strategy here.
Well, that's still in negotiation.
Right.
And the $1 billion is just an opening gambit on the part of the Trump.
Got it. That's crazy. It's just... It's not just the money either. They're making all these other conditions about what foreign students, they're even all the way to the foreign students' social media, and who they can admit, pressuring them around curriculum, professors. I know two different professors who are in the process of being pushed out for being too woke.
Well, it starts at the top. The incoming president of the University of California system, James Milliken, at his previous post at the University of Texas, he was notorious for cutting so-called DEI, for example. That's not reassuring, to put it mildly.
How is it not, I know I'm circling back to another topic, but how is it not DEI to have white South Africans get visas only and not let, if you're going to start having refugee status for South Africans, it has to be for all South Africans. Otherwise, they're violating their own DEI. Or apparently it's only okay for white people?
Well, apparently that is the case. But it gets even worse because in certain African countries, in order to apply for a visa now, you have to put up a $15,000 bond.
Right.
And you supposedly get it back once you leave the United States of America. But I'm sure they'll find an excuse to keep their grubby little paws on that $15K.
And who has $15K in the United States, let alone Africa, to put up to travel anywhere? That's crazy. That's just rich people only can come here. Might as well just post a sign, oligarchs only.
Well, that's the policy of oligarch number one, speaking of Mr. Trump. And speaking of oligarch number one, Mr. Trump's net worth has gone up by a few $1 billion since January 20th when he was inaugurated. And a lot of it has to do with Bitcoin. This Trump coin, for example, is selling like hotcakes. And, of course, those who are seeking clemency or commutation of sentences, they're buying this Trump coin, for example, hoping to get in the good graces of the president so that they can get a get-out-of-jail-free card.
It's bribery and extortion. Someone check Diddy's account. Let's see if he has any Trump coin or Melania coin. And I'm sure the list goes on. We're talking with Dr. Gerald Horne, 800-920-1580 if you want to chime in or you got a question. You can hurry up and do that. I got many. I still want to talk about your take on 60 years since the Watts Rebellion. This week marks that. We'll look at that when we continue on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon right after Tavis Smiley for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You gotta dip your chicken strips. Hey, this is Kiani.
And this is Tabitha.
And a little thing we love about Chick-fil-A chicken strips
is all the different sauces we can dip them in. I like to line up all my favorite sauces so that in every bite, I have a different flavor. Then, with the tenderness of the chicken, the juiciness of it, it's all there.
And for me, I like to mix my sauces so I get a little tang and I get a little sweetness all in one bite.
That's what makes it for me. Like, that's what does it for me.
That's what I'm saying.
It's the summer of Chick-fil-A chicken strips and sauces. Order now on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind: to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my two sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-687-7979. That's 800-687-7979. 800-687-7979.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Gerald Horne, where can we see you, find you, buy your book, all of the above? Before I ask you any more questions, I have to ask you that.
Well, fortunately, I'm not underground yet, so I'm easy to reach. Our producers found out that you contacted me the other day. Certainly, I have a new book out on slavery in Washington, D.C., the capital of slavery, Washington, D.C., 1800 to 1865. I have a book coming out in a few months on the Pacific, focused centrally on Hawaii, but dealing also with the Philippines. And, of course, as you mentioned, my YouTube videos are all over the place.
Yep, including the ones for this show. Whenever you come on, lots and lots of people love to watch your video, even though it's just me listening to you. But I think they're listening to the audio. You can find all of our conversations on YouTube at KBLA 1580. Buy a book, buy 3 books. I'm not caught up. I'm still reading Armed Struggle, which is kind of fat. It's really interesting, though. Super, super interesting. But the capital of slavery sounds fascinating.
Well, Washington, D.C., in many ways was the capital of slavery. I mean, within the shadow of Capitol Hill, there were Africans being sold like horses and cattle, for example. At the same time, of course, the Africans, the black people, whenever there was an invasion of Washington, for example, during the War of 1812 by the British, they would join the invaders and help to burn down the city, for example, which took place in August 1814, and then they escaped on British boats to Trinidad and Tobago, where their descendants continued to reside. And then, of course, I deal with the John Brown attack in Virginia, neighboring Virginia, in 1859, which triggered the Civil War, the Nat Turner attack in neighboring Virginia. And, of course, Baltimore, just down the road from Washington, was probably the most important black city in pre-Civil War United States.
Lots of reading to do, y'all. I just unofficially, low-key started the Baraka Book Club. It's going to be my new venture, my new little nonprofit venture to get us to read more. So we're reading the Parable of the Sower right now. But I think, Doctor, one of your books has to be next. Has to be second on our list, Dr. Horne. Okay, so let's get to it. A lot to cover here. Dr. Horne, talk to me about Sudan. I think it's probably one of the most underreported stories happening on the world stage right now.
Well, for a few years now, Sudan has been falling apart. Ostensibly, there's a conflict between the military and a wing of the military for ultimate control of this country, which at one time was the largest nation by territory on the continent of Africa. But then you may recall that about a decade or so ago, under then U.S. President George W. Bush, South Sudan seceded from the larger Sudan, and that has helped in part to trigger this wider conflict in the larger Sudan. And you might have seen that the folks who were deported from the United States of America just in the last month or so, they were dropped in South Sudan, for example.
That's crazy.
And in fact, that's an ongoing trend to drop these undocumented workers in South Sudan and Rwanda, in the country formerly known as Swaziland. And as we know, Mr. Trump has made it clear that so-called homegrown, that is to say persons like yourself and myself who were born here, we could be next on the list, for example.
Yeah.
And you mentioned El Salvador and how the United States has gone soft on El Salvador. El Salvador is another place where folks are being dropped in that torture prison just outside of San Salvador. So we have a lot of work on our hands.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of much scarier than being just dropped in the middle of South Sudan, other than maybe being dropped in a prison in El Salvador, which is, at least in South Sudan, you might escape somewhere. That's terrible, terrible, terrible. Talk to me about, I know we're almost out of time here, but I want to hear your thoughts on 60 years since the Watts Uprising. We started our week with that, with Tim Watkins of the WLCAC on yesterday.
Well, on August 12th, approximately 60 years ago, South Los Angeles was on fire. I'm sure your audience knows that what triggered it ostensibly was that old perennial, speaking of police terror against our community, and the community decided that they had had enough. And so for about a week, the city was in flames. About 36 people were killed. We should take note of the fact that the National Guard had to be called in, and the National Guard, as noted, have not been trained. We're not trained then, hardly too trained now in terms of civilian interaction, and that led to this bloodshed, this slaughter in the streets of Los Angeles. It wasn't just contained in South Los Angeles. Of course, it came to the borders of Beverly Hills, for example. So the city of Los Angeles has this history of going up in flames. Recall what happened in 1992, for example. And I think that is something that Mr. Trump should think about.
I mean, it's one reason why National Guard being here, it was not actually unprecedented, just the context in which it happened. But yeah, I think we're forgetting that history a little bit. You wanted to say something about the attacks on white people being hyped in the Wall Street Journal. I haven't seen that. That's one of the papers that I actually don't subscribe to, but I probably should.
Well, it's very unfortunate because what happened is there was this isolated incident in Cincinnati that was apparently captured on tape.
Right, I heard about that.
And the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal have been beating the drums about this alleged terrorizing of the white community by black youth. I put in that context the recent announcement about Mr. Trump of taking over the police department of Washington, D.C. It's part of this targeting of black youth in particular. And I think it's just a prelude to what's obvious, which is turning the story around to justify attacks on black youth, because supposedly our youth are terrorizing other communities. It's really ridiculous. It's ludicrous, but it's also hateful.
Yeah. Well, I always ask you for some good news. We only have 1:30. I left you only 1:30 because I know it's a little thin these days, but we've got some wins, right?
Oh, clearly. And I'd like to reiterate this summit, this earth-shaking, trailblazing summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, between the African Union and the Caribbean community, preceded by a similar summit in Grenada just a few days ago. This could mark a real turning point, not only in the struggle for reparations, but also in the struggle for African development, Caribbean development, etc.
Okay, well, you did it in 30 seconds. I noticed it was harder than ever to get visas for Ghana, Nigeria. Easy to get a visa for Benin because I don't think too many people go there. But I felt like it was retaliatory. It feels like other countries are kind of giving us the finger. Your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Benin because, as you probably know, Spike Lee, the filmmaker, and his spouse were just in Benin.
Yeah.
And also Kiara, the singer.
Ciara,
was just in Benin.
she traced her bloodline there.
Yeah, and so that particular regime is making an outreach to Black Americans. It's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, we were there. They showed us a lot of love. We met with the Wudong king, and he said all the people who had their DNA from there are now part of his kingdom officially. He said they have a place to go. So they were very welcoming. Dr. Gerald Horne, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for tapping in with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
We're talking Diddy, P. Diddy and them. Rapper Jay French is here. Oh, yeah, it's a lively show today, y'all. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. With school starting Thursday, the LA Unified School District is creating safe zones to shield students from immigration raids. Superintendent Alberto Carvalho spoke at a news conference on Monday.
Parents, if you are afraid of being on the street with your child, we more than likely can accommodate a specific bus route for your child.
Black Mayor Karen Bass says no info will be shared with federal agents.